Az általunk nagyra becsült Ben Hodges tábornok videóját magyarítottam így új év elején.
General Ben Hodges in this video provide a comprehensive analysis of the situation in Ukraine and its broader implications.
If Ukraine fails, the Russians have made it very clear that Ukraine is not their only objective. They talk about Moldova, they talk about Baltic countries. So when you talk about Baltic countries, we're talking about NATO allies. And so that's one of the dangers of this situation, is that if we allow Ukraine to fail, and it would be us allowing Ukraine to fail, then we could very well end up in a conflict where NATO is involved, and then the United States, UK, Germany, other countries would be drawn into the conflict because of our obligation under Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, where an armed attack on one is an armed attack on all. Industrial and military standpoint, when it comes to Russia or support for Ukraine, yes, I mean, Europe already provides more than the U.S. does. Europe together has recently passed the United States in its total contribution. And frankly, I don't think the Europeans have really gotten serious about improving defense production output. We're talking about ammunition. This is a matter of political will. Now, if there's the political will, and if enough European leaders are concerned enough that the U.S. may back away, then I think they will invest as they should. The Bundeskanzler, Chancellor Scholz, said that just the other day, that Germany has to be prepared to step up, particularly if others step away. And I would just ask your listeners to step back and think, okay, Russia started this 9 years ago. So after 9 years, with every advantage, Russia still controls less than about 17% of Ukraine. They've lost 20% of their Navy. They have this gigantic Air Force with many more modern aircraft than Ukraine has, yet they have never achieved air superiority, which is job one for any Air Force. And they have not even been able to destroy a single train or convoy bringing equipment from Poland into Ukraine. And that's job two, is to interdict the other side's lines of communication. And then on the ground, yes, the Ukrainian counteroffensive did not achieve what we all had hoped, and I certainly was wrong I overestimated what they would be able to accomplish. But still, after these 9 years and almost 320,000 Russian soldiers killed and wounded and thousands of vehicles lost, and this is where we are. So I think that the key here is for the United States, Germany, to do what UK has done, provide long-range weapons capability. Let's get these F-16s into combat here, probably around early summer, and I think the Ukrainians will regain the initiative. Well, of course, these attacks last night are against civilian targets. I mean, civilian infrastructure. They're not going after Ukrainian military targets. They're going after civilians. So clear continuation of Russian policy of war crimes, trying to destroy the will of Ukrainian people, but also trying to destroy our will in the West to continue supporting Ukraine. This is continuing, and so on and on. That's really the only hope the Russians have, though, is that we lose the will. The Ukrainian people certainly are not.
And was this a pretty inevitable retaliation from the Russians after Ukraine struck that warship a few days ago, which by all accounts was pretty humiliating for Putin?
Well, these are not retaliatory strikes. You know, the Russians have been doing this since the beginning. I think that they have, what I have read, probably about 800 cruise missiles, like many of the ones that were launched last night, that they have been stockpiling in anticipation of a resumption of attacks on the energy or the power infrastructure across Ukraine. The strike that sank or destroyed a Russian warship in Feodosia, which is the smaller seaport of the Crimean Peninsula, it should be humiliating because, you know, Ukraine, using storm shadows provided by UK and their own innovative tactics, continue to be able to inflict real punishment on Russian forces in and around Crimea. They have proven the concept that Crimea, the most important piece of terrain that Russia occupies inside Ukraine, can be made untenable for Russian forces if Ukraine has the weapons with the range and precision like Storm Shadow, which is why it's just maddening to me, and I can't cannot understand why my country and Germany both continue to withhold providing ATACMS or the German Taurus, for example, that would allow Ukraine to go after Russian bases inside occupied Ukraine.
And it probably is worth taking a moment, Ben, to consider the success that Ukraine have had in targeting Russia's Black Sea Fleet, because there is a narrative at the moment that the war is at a sort of stalemate and that the U.S. is growing in confidence. And yet, if you look at the success Ukraine have had this year in the Black Sea, it is remarkable for a country that essentially has no navy.
It's incredible. I mean, about 20% of the Black Sea Fleet is gone. And you're right, Ukraine does not have a navy in the traditional sense anymore. So they're accomplishing this using drones, cruise missiles, sabotage, commando raids, all the different clever things that they can to create that much trouble. So much for the Black Sea Fleet that the commander has withdrawn about a third of the fleet out of Sevastopol and sent them further east into the Black Sea towards their own legitimate port at Novorossiysk. So there is, I'm glad you brought this up though, James, there is this kind of a sense that, you know, Ukraine is either losing or it's just, there's no way they can win. The large-scale invasion started 2 years ago. And even after 9 years, they still only control about 19% of Ukraine. So it will take them, I think, anywhere from 3 to 5 years to rebuild their industry enough, rebuild their military enough, where they could feel confident in taking on a NATO country and all that would entail. But they would only do this if they saw that we failed to demonstrate the will and capability and capacity to help Ukraine defeat Russia. So our failure here will encourage them, as our failure in the past, to react strongly to their invasion of Georgia, their invasion of Ukraine in 2014 would encourage them to think that they could do this again.
Reméljük, igaza lesz a tábornok úrnak.